Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsey Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hello, fans, and Happy New Year. Happy 2022. It's Lindsey Elizabeth Cortez, your host of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast and owner of Rise Up Nutrition. And I'm super excited to kick the new year off with you. I have a solo episode for you today to talk about goal setting, having it be time for New Year's resolutions and things like that. I think it's very fitting to talk about our goals and resolutions. And I think this is going to be a really powerful episode. I'm here today to give you some actionable tips to follow through, or maybe first create your goals and resolutions and then follow through with them. So I'm going to try and give you, I think 5. I'm saying I think because when I do these solo episodes, I have like scribbled some notes down in front of me, but basically I wing it. So I think I've got 5 tips for you. We'll see if I add more along the way. But before I dive into these 5 tips for creating goals and following through them for 2022, I want to start with giving you a brief update on me and my life if you want to hear it. So many of you have been following my personal journey, whether it be through social media on @female.athlete.nutrition on Instagram, or just through listening to this podcast. And you know that for the past 9 months-ish, I've been pregnant. And so I'm here to tell you that everything went well with the birth of my firstborn. My son, my little baby, Gabriel, was born on December 12th of 2021. And we are blessed. I feel blessed, and we're both doing really well. Yeah, I won't get into like all the details of the birth story, but maybe if fans are interested, I'm happy to do that for another episode. But his first week was a little challenging just because he was a jaundice baby. So we were readmitted to the hospital, kind of dealing with that. But since then, we've been home and I've just been adjusting. And it is a big adjustment. And it actually kind of flows into the topic of goal setting, just because I am, to overly simplify, a type A personality of being goal-oriented, very driven, dedicated. I'm somebody who likes to have a plan. And so my plan post-birth was to, I don't know, just figure it out with baby. My plan was to work less, be on maternity leave, and kind of see what that looked like and focus on recovering my body and just taking care of a baby. But with that being said, that was a very loose plan. And my personality it's hard every day with a newborn, of them not being on a schedule. Also me, my emotions, my hormones, my mental state, just being all over the place. I don't want to say bad. I think what it is what's very much expected postpartum, but it's not easy. And then recovery, maybe not going quite as fast as I thought it would. And really having a lot of time on my hands to also want to make things better. I want to set goals for myself. I want to feel better. I want to recover faster. I want baby to be on a schedule. And I'm have all this time at home. It's not that I'm sitting around with a ton of time doing nothing, because if any of you listening have children, then this phase is you have no time because you're caring for the baby so much. But I have a lot of time to think, and it's I want to set these goals for myself and find a sense of self again. And I have to hold myself back because there's really nothing I can do. I can't speed up my personal recovery too much faster than what it's going at. I probably can't get a newborn on more of a schedule until, I don't know, maybe around 6 weeks old, I'll be able to. That's what the books say, more likely 2-3 months. And so it's really hard to set goals. And I've been trying to, I've been wanting to, I've been tempted to, and I have to really hold myself back and be more realistic with myself. Now that's my kind of where I'm at postpartum and trying to be patient with myself and goal setting. And wherever you are with your journey, be it the same as me or something completely different of setting goals for your nutrition, your fueling, your sport, your competitions and races that you want to focus on this year, or maybe even extending this out to goals for your career and goals for your school and things like that. This time of year is filled with the temptation to set these big, shiny goals and to dedicate yourself to them and to, just go all in 100%. New Year's resolution, this year's going to be different than the last. And just kind of like, there's a lot of pressure and hype this time of year to do that. And again, I want to say from a place of somebody who that's my personality, like it's not always a bad thing. Setting goals can be a good thing. Having structure, having something to focus on can absolutely be a good thing. But I think there's so much hype this time of year that it's kind of important to like check in with yourself, maybe hold yourself back a little bit, or really just reframe these goals. Because specific to the nutrition and fitness industry, we know, well, maybe you don't. I know that the messages around nutrition and body this time of year can be so toxic. There's a lot of what I call diet culture messages that we hear and see of like, start your diet, lose 10 pounds, or this is the year to get in shape. There's a lot of sales going on with the industry trying to sell you their 30-day program or sell you their supplements with very often the promise of you're going to be a new person this year. You're going to finally, change how you look or lose that weight or tone up and everything will be better. If only you do this 30-day program, and if only you get these supplements, and if only you stay regimented, and if only you get the picture, right? There's a lot of that this time of year. And there's also that pressure of like, it's so cliche, but the new year, new me slogan. Again, I'm not saying it's bad to want to change. If you've got issues in your life, you've got problems that need changing, great. Let's make 2022 the year that you do. And I'm coming from a place of wanting to motivate people with my nutrition coaching programs and things like that, that if nutrition is something you've been struggling with, or if you struggle with disordered eating, like make 2022 the year that you overcome it once and for all. I would love that. So I'm not saying that you can't change, but let's be very cautious of what goals we're setting for ourselves, making sure that they're healthy and better than the word healthy, I should just say positive changes that we're making for ourselves. Do you really need a whole new you, or do you just need to improve yourself? Do you just need to add the finishing touches? Do you just need to add like a shiny coating, right? Maybe that's what we need to do instead of having a whole new you, is just what are the areas that I need to improve upon? And so you really want to be cautious of those messages that you might be hearing and seeing this entire month of January that might be more negative New Year's resolutions or negative goals, or just goals that aren't as realistic. I did put out a really simple Instagram post this week that, to just kind of summarize what is a positive New Year's resolution. For example, instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to cut out carbs and lower my fats, instead, a resolution might be, how can I add more nutrients to my plate this year? How can I add more nutrients to my diet this year? Or instead of a goal that's saying, I want to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, or quite frankly, even a goal of like, I want to gain muscle and tone up or get a 6-pack, that like really aesthetic goal, instead trying a goal or resolution of, hey, I'm going to practice self-love and body acceptance work every single day, or I'm going to throw out the scale and look at my performance measures instead. Those might be healthier, more positive goals and resolutions. when we think about the training and exercise aspect, instead of a goal or resolution of just, I'm going to add more training days, I'm going to bump up my mileage, I'm going to, get to the gym 6 days a week instead of what I used to do at 4. Instead, like committing to following a training program, maybe led by a coach that has, structured easy training days, recovery training days, and hard training days, so that you are truly taking care of your body and training your body to the best of its ability, instead of just, all out 100% going hard in the paint all the time. Again, making those more positive resolutions and goals so that we don't fall into all the negative and harmful traps and pressures of unrealistic New Year's resolutions that we have this time of year. Because hopefully you guys know this, but it's crazy when you look at the statistics and the research out about New Year's resolutions, but it's less than half of New Year's resolutions are actually kept within just 6 months. I think it's by the end of the first week of January, it's like 75% of people, 75% are able to keep the resolutions within 1 week. So literally meaning 1 out of 4 people can't even keep their New Year's resolutions for a week. And then by 6 months, it's less than half. And I'm actually not positive on the 1 year follow-up, but I think it's even less than that. And the reason that these New Year's resolutions are not kept, one of the number one reasons is because they're unrealistic goals and resolutions in the first place. They are truly unrealistic. Other reasons that New Year's resolutions are not kept is because you're not actually monitoring your progress. And I don't just mean that in the positive way of like seeing your progress always improve, like in this amazing linear fashion of every week I'm getting stronger or faster or whatever, but progress all around of highlighting every little win as well as the setbacks. And then when you have that setback, being able to identify what can I do to overcome this, right? So you do need a way to monitor your progress and really keep yourself motivated and know where to adjust when you need to. Another reason that New Year's resolutions are not kept is people truly honestly forget about them, which sounds silly, but it's true. Just forgetting about it, stepping right back into your old life, really not making it a priority. And the last one is setting too many goals. When people approach the new year and they set maybe like, I don't know how many is too many, is probably a very individualized thing, but I would probably say anything more than 2 might be too many goals. And here's a little side personal story. I think for me, last year was the first time that I truly like committed to kind of a goofy New Year's resolution and was successful with it. And I'm a little embarrassed to tell you guys what it is, but I'm going to go for it. It was flossing my teeth. I just historically across my lifespan just never got into it. Like I would do it randomly. I would do it when I felt like food was stuck. I would do it sometimes. And it was probably a New Year's resolution for probably, I don't know, at least 5 years of the past where I was like, I'm going to floss my teeth every single day. And I never created the routine, or maybe I created too many other goals, or I forgot about it. Last year, I did it. I dedicated myself to it. And it's been an entire year of flossing my teeth every single day. At this point, sometimes I do it multiple times a day because I love it so much. It feels so good, which is crazy. So you really can change people. You really can change things that you used to resent or hate. You might grow to love and see the benefit of. But I digress. There's my little personal story here. So thinking about this year, setting some realistic goals, positive goals, things that help you, and then making sure that we're finding a way to monitor your progress, not forget about it, and also make sure that, you're not setting too many goals so that you can focus in on these 1 or 2 things that will bring a positive impact to your life, and not something that's really diet culture that's leading you down the wrong path and hurting you more than helping you. So I mentioned 5 tips that I want to get into to help you set your New Year's resolutions or create some good healthy goals. So the first one I think is just honestly doing a little activity of figuring out what goals are even within your control. So an exercise of control that I would like to have you do or think about. So when you think about control, there are many things in life that we have total control over. For example, I do have total control over whether or not I floss my teeth. I have total control over that. But I only have some control over other things. For example, I only have some control over my dog's behaviors, right? Like, obviously I can train my dogs, and so I have some control over how they'll behave, but I don't have full control because they're still animals and they have their own minds and they're going to do what they want to do. So some things in life you only have some control over. And then there's other things in life that you have zero control, no control over. I have no control over the weather. I have no control over time. There are only 24 hours in a day and only 365 days of a year. I have no control over that. I also have no control over my genetics. I have no control over my height, right? So there are things that we have no control over. There's things we have some control over. I have some control over my weight, but I don't have total control over my weight. I definitely have some control over my athletic performances, but I would say I still don't have full control over that and total control because, again, there's things like genetics or my length of my legs and, how many strides I can take per minute that I just can't change that. I can't change what pure God-given talent I was given, but I do have control over the effort that I put into every workout. So give yourself a moment, maybe even put this podcast on pause and whip out a piece of paper and maybe draw a list or some circles of what you have total control over in your life, what you have some control over, what you have no control over. And try and think about everything. This is the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. Definitely try and think about things, food, training, nutrition, health related, but think about other things too, like your finances, your relationships, your stress levels. What do you have total control over, some control, or no control over? All right. When you're done with that activity, it'll flow nicely into now, how can we even create a goal? Because the first step of creating a goal or a New Year's resolution is identifying something that you want and want a change over. And I think doing that exercise of control is so important because you have to know what things can you even have total or some control over. If you have no control over this, we shouldn't be setting a goal on it. Right? That would be setting an unrealistic goal if it's within the no control category. And if it is within the total control, that's probably a much better place to make a goal. And the some control category, possibly. In both of these, I think it comes down to the type of goal you're setting and how clear you are on the process of how you will get there. So when you're thinking about what in your life you have total and some control over, and then kind of thinking about what is it that you actually want? What are some goals that you want? And as you're thinking about this goal, maybe first start with just giving yourself a moment to think about some of your strengths and weaknesses around this topic or around this goal. Think about your strengths and weaknesses. And then think about how this goal might affect you short-term versus long-term. Generally speaking, those long-term goals will provide you with more of a sense of meaning and purpose in your life versus those short-term goals. So maybe your short-term goals are really a step towards working toward the long-term goal. These are just some things to think about, okay? So think about your strengths and weaknesses, long-term versus short-term, and are those short-term goals actually a stepping stone to your long-term goals? And how does that fit in with the year 2022? Or do we need to expand upon this? Is this like a 3-year goal or a 5-year goal, right? So as I mentioned, I think I'm giving you 5 tips today for goal setting. And that first one is think about things within your control, your sphere of control. And our second tip for you is to then make that goal something you want to work on that is somewhat or totally within your control, to make it a SMART goal. So maybe you've heard of this acronym before, SMART goals, S-M-A-R-T. The S stands for specific. The M is measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So a SMART goal is one that's specific, meaning it's well-defined, it's clear, it's not ambiguous. So instead of a goal of like, I want to get in better shape, that's not super clear, it's not well-defined. So that would not be specific. But if you have in a SMART goal would be something more specific, like I want to deadlift 200 pounds, or I want to run a certain time. Those are more specific. It's well-defined. It's more clear. Or maybe it's just, I want to sign up and complete this marathon, right? Those are more specific as well. Next one is measurable. So having objective criteria that can gauge and track your progress. Remember, I mentioned one reason why people fail on resolutions is they're not tracking their progress. So it is super important to make sure that you can measure your success and measure your ability to achieve this goal. So again, going off the examples I just said, deadlifting 200 pounds, you can measure that, right? You can measure the weight, or you can measure completing a marathon, even if it's not by time, to just, okay, it's in June. That's something I can measure. I've got 6 months until then, and I can measure the day of when it will happen and the miles that I complete. Wonderful. Or maybe it's something more of like, I want to be more consistent with my nutrition, and how can we measure that? Some people might jump to the thought of like calorie counting and macro counting. That might work for some people, but maybe that consistency is another way of like, I'm going to make sure that I eat 3 meals a day. And that might sound so simple, but I know so many of you struggle with that. So yeah, you can measure that. Am I consistently eating 3 meals a day? That's something you can measure. So the third part of a SMART goal is whether it is achievable, making sure that it is possible to achieve. And some questions to ask yourself there is, have you achieved this goal before? Because if you have, then you know it is possible, right? But even if you haven't, that doesn't mean it's impossible. That's for sure. We can always achieve new things. But a question to ask yourself is, has anyone else achieved this goal before? Are you trying to be the very first person? And again, I'm not saying that's impossible. There's people who are the first people to do things for a reason, but we're really trying to be a little bit more realistic and make sure that this is something achievable for ourselves. So has anyone achieved it before? And do you have the resources to achieve this goal? So I know I'm being goofy with this example, but like, it is not attainable for me to become an astronaut this year, right? The amount of training that it would take, the money, the resources, I'd have to go to school. Like, that's not an achievable goal for me this year. Maybe if I really, really want to become an astronaut, maybe I can within the next 5 years or 10 years, but not this year, right? So we need to make sure it's achievable with everything kind of pulling in the resources that we have to achieve this goal. And that ties nicely into the fourth part of a SMART goal, which is realistic, making sure that you really can do this. It's within reach. It's relevant to your life purpose. Are you able to commit to this goal? Do you have the support around you to do it? So maybe a more relevant example of a realistic goal, it is realistic for me to someday PR in the marathon. But is it realistic this year? For me personally, being just postpartum, I'm not sure that I can really commit to it with my life right now, the amount of training that it would take. I'm not sure that it's realistic within a 1-year timeline. I know it's realistic at some point in my life again, but within this 1 year, maybe it's not so much, So I know that achievable and realistic can kind of be confusing, but it's like PRing in the marathon is achievable. I've done it before. Other people have done it. I have the resources to do it, but is it realistic for this year and my life and the relevance going on in my life right now? Maybe not so much, right? For me personally, being postpartum, maybe a more realistic goal for me might be just doing a marathon again. Or if I'm being really honest, it might be a half marathon. That's more realistic for me this year. So again, we've got to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic. And the last part of setting a SMART goal is timely, being defined by a clear timeline. Of course, when we're talking about New Year's resolutions, we're talking about 1 year, but maybe, I think I didn't mention this previously, but I think that's another reason that people do not achieve their New Year's resolutions is because they think they have a whole year, which sounds like a lot of time. And so they kind of delay working on things. They delay. And the next thing you know, a whole year has gone by. So even though a New Year's resolution is for a whole year, make sure that your goal is timely and maybe think about a more relevant or more appropriate start and finish date. When do you want to achieve the goal by? You can achieve it sooner than a year if you want to. So again, if you want to press pause on this podcast right now, take out your piece of paper again and kind of look at your sphere of control. Think about what is it that I want, and then write out the SMART acronym of specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, and write out 1, 2, maybe at most 3 goals that you might have for yourself using this SMART acronym. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 really goes along with tip number 2. Maybe they should be interchanged. I don't know which one should really go first. So there's really 3 different types of goals that you can create: outcome goals, performance goals, or process goals. My favorite of which being process goals, because that's what you have full control over. But to start with, kind of at the top here, are outcome goals. These are super specific. They are, of course, things that it's the outcome you want in your goal. So I want the outcome of running a 3-hour marathon. That's the result and the outcome that you want. Or maybe it's an outcome of, I want to improve my blood biomarkers. I want my vitamin D level to be above 40 and my iron to be above 40 or something like that. Or maybe it's an outcome goal of, I want my period. So very results specific, but also things that you have the least control over, because sometimes you can be doing everything right, but your blood biomarkers are just look different because everybody has individual differences, or because we don't have full control over our genetics, right? And you can be doing everything right with your training and still not reach that 3-hour marathon this year because of, I don't know, maybe it's an injury or something like that. So you might not have full control over everything. Or maybe it's because that marathon had a lot of hills in it, right? You didn't have full control over the course. So these outcome goals, although we are very tempted to make them, we have the least control over them, and those results aren't always guaranteed. So instead of setting outcome goals, I really encourage you to set process goals. These are goals that are all about the process and things that are within your control, right? And they're more measurable. So when it comes to that goal of running a 3-hour marathon, well, you might not have full control over the weather that day and how hilly the course was, or if you rolled your ankle on the course, right, to really hit that 3-hour marathon. But what you do have control over is the process of getting you there. So you do have control over the miles that you hit each week. You do have control over the coach that you hire to help you out. You do have control over your nutrition to prepare you throughout the training process and the race day. You have more control over these things, and focusing on the process is what will ultimately probably get you to the outcome. But again, those outcomes aren't guaranteed. But if you're doing the process, if you're sticking to the goal of the process, no matter what, you will find success in some way, right? Of either reaching that outcome goal or of being so close and having learned so much about yourself along the way that it's always worth it. So those process goals, focusing on the process is so much more helpful because it's things that you truly have control over. I'll give you the example of getting your period back as well. We can't just say, I have a goal to get my period back. We have to focus on the process. So the process is reevaluating your nutrition, your fueling, your training to get there. The process, that first step of perhaps eating more, or that first step of maybe just hiring help, or that first step of committing to overcoming disordered eating, which is what got you in the place of amenorrhea in the first place. So what is the process that will ultimately help give you that outcome? So that's my next tip for you, is to focus on the process goal. And my fourth tip for you is, as you're focusing on the process, what are the things that you are willing to do and not willing to do? And I usually actually like to have a 3-step process with this: a will, willing, won't. What will you do? What will you commit yourself to? What are you a 10 out of 10? I will do this. And what are you more willing to do? Something that you're maybe not a 10 out of 10, but you're like a 6, 7, 8. You're willing to give it a try. And what won't you do? This is super important to think about what you are not willing to do. What won't you do in this process? I'll give you an example going off of the period thing of having that goal of that outcome goal of get your period back. Well, it's really like the process is really, I need to fuel my body better. And when you do this will, willing, won't exercise, many people that I talk to as athletes know that if they stopped exercise, they'd get their period back easier or faster. But a lot of people are not willing to do that. And you know what? it is very important to be honest with yourself about that. As a clinician and somebody who deals with amenorrhea often, I always tell people, yes, you will get your period back faster, and perhaps it is the right thing for you to do to stop training. But if you're not going to, then we need to find another way. So what will you do? What are you willing to do? And what won't you do? And I think it's helpful to even give yourself like a 1 to 10 scale. Again, 1 being I'm not going to do it, and 10 being I'm 100% invested. I will do this. And kind of think about those process goals that you need, that you want to achieve, and then give yourself a 1 through 10 rating. What will I do? What am I willing to do? And what won't I do? So that you can kind of set yourself up with clear boundaries as you go through the process of achieving your goal. Okay. When you know the process, when you know your goal, you've got a SMART goal, you know your process, you know what you're willing to do and what you won't do. The final tip here is to make sure that you create a habit so that this actually gets done and so that you follow through with your goal. So when you create a habit, I mean, gosh, there's a lot of different statistics about this too, but I do have from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, a statistic saying that on average, it takes individuals 66 days to form a new habit. 66 days. So that's more than 2 months, but that's an average because the truth is it ranges from a minimum of 18 days all the way up to 200 days, depending on the person and the habit being formed. So when it comes to focusing on the process of achieving a goal, we need to make these things a habit. And you can have the rule of the 3 R's, which is having a reminder, a routine, and a reward. This is really helpful in order to create a habit. So a reminder is a trigger, something that initiates events or starts the habit. For me, I'm going to go back to my flossing, which was my 2021 goal. I needed the reminder, which was that I left the floss out right next to my toothbrush and toothpaste every single day. So I didn't put it away in the drawer or away in the cabinet. It was out on the countertop right next to my toothbrush so that every night when I brushed my teeth, I saw it and I had that reminder. I had that trigger. And then creating the routine of it. Well, I kind of just already said that I had the routine of every single night. I could have flossed any time of day, or I could have flossed every morning, but I created the routine of every night. So I had a reminder, I had a visual reminder, and I made a routine of it of every single night. I had a kind of nighttime routine of brush my teeth, floss my teeth, wash my face, and then head to bed, right? And then there's the reward. This might be different for everybody. Some people might create rewards. Like I want to create, if I do this X amount of times, I'll reward myself with something. But to me, my reward for flossing was truly the feeling and just the good benefit of it, of like, oh, I have cleaner teeth and this feels better. And my teeth are kind of getting whiter over time. So seeing the results was my reward. But other people might want to actually treat yourself, I suppose, or give yourself some sort of reward. So when it comes to reminders, routines, and rewards, as it pertains to your nutrition and training goals, I think you can apply all of this. Do you need a visual reminder? Do you need your supplements to be right next to the coffee pot in the morning so you remember to take your vitamins and minerals every single morning? Do you need the reminder of messages on your phone or images of memes and positive quotes for recovery to pop up on your phone or be on the backdrop of your watch to have, something that's just reminding you every day of why you're committing to recovery? You need to create the routine for yourself so that you can take action on the habit itself. So routine of, if it's recovery that we're talking about, the routine of every Wednesday going to a support group, or routine if you're working with me and our team here as nutrition coaches, the routine of having a session with your dietitian every single week. And then the reward, once again, maybe it's something that you give yourself, or maybe the reward truly is just the thrill and enjoyment of reaching your goal and reaping the benefits of that. Wow, I feel like we went over a lot. I think I went over 5 things. As a recap here, your sphere of control, making sure that these goals and New Year's resolutions are truly within your control, or at least somewhat within your control. And then making sure that it is a SMART goal, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Focusing on the process of that goal. creating boundaries for yourself on what you will do, what you are willing to do, and what you won't do. And then setting yourself up for success to make this a habit by creating reminders, routines, and rewards. If you can do these 5 things, then I think you're going to be one of the few people that actually does achieve their New Year's resolutions. And circling back to how I started this podcast episode, with talking about myself and my postpartum journey, I have been tempted to create running plans for myself and get myself on track and get baby on a schedule. And I have to hold myself back from that right now. But what I'm actually doing, I'm not setting a very specific New Year's resolutions, but I am letting these thoughts kind of marinate about what are some big picture things I want to achieve for 2022. And I'm probably going to revisit it maybe in another month or 2. I really think this is important for me right now to not set any goals, but I'm letting all of kind of the big picture things of what do I think I want to achieve? What are some things that are realistic for me? What are things that are within my control? And then probably come March, I might actually sit down and do this exercise. So I'm saying this as a little reminder that you can set goals for yourself whenever. If January isn't the right time in your life, then, you don't need to be sucked into the New Year's resolution hype. I actually, as a business owner, personally sit down and kind of create business goals just about once every 3 months, about 4 times a year. So you can do that too. We don't have to put all of our eggs in one basket and making January the month, right? So if you just want to let all this marinate, you kind of want the hype of the new year to settle down a little bit. And then revisit some of your goals come February, March, April, whenever you want to. I think when it's coming from you and it's internally motivated, as opposed to the pressures of our society of saying it's a new year, set goals, then it's going to be even better when it's internally motivated. So if you don't want to do this right now, don't do it right now. Come back, revisit this podcast episode when you're ready for it. And if you're kind of somebody who's motivated by the new year, then I hope that you get out that pen and paper. Like I said, listen to this podcast again, put me on pause and go through these exercises. Happy New Year, everybody. Wishing you all the best. And I'm excited for you to tune in next time on the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that episode and thanks for listening. But before I let you go, I have free resources that you can have access to right away, right now, so that you can start fueling your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. First, I have your Red S recovery race. If you've ever wondered if you might be struggling with Red S, curious to learn more, or know you have Red S and are looking to recover fast, then you can head to www.riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS and download the Red S Recovery Race. See how you place and figure out the next steps to recovery. Plus, while there, I have a few other great resources for you, including 3 nutrition secrets that every elite athlete swears by, and access to our private Facebook community, Female Athlete Nutrition. So again, to gain access to all of this, head to riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS. That's /REDS. And you can gain access and get the help you need fast. Too many girls and women and female athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. Become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and I'll see you next time.